What's up, y'all? Welcome back to True Talks. We have made it past the 10 episode mark. We're very early in the game, and I'm happy to say that we've made it this far, and you guys keep tuning back in and checking out new content. Shout outs and thanks to all of my previous guests. You guys have really been uplifting people, encouraging people, and giving some truths, along the way, hopefully educating people as much as possible. I know we spent a lot of time talking about race and me keeping you all informed about recent happenings. And if you want to go back over that and listen to it or tune into it for the first time, feel free to do so. You can always leave a message on there and I'll play it in the next episode. But now we're getting back on schedule. We're going to have some of my guests that I've wanted on this show for a while now and discuss some topics to really connect with you all and just kind of talk. That's what it's all about. True Talks, having real conversations with real people about things that matter. And so one big announcement is you guys are able to see me now. So hopefully it makes it a bit more personal. This will get released on YouTube. So that's why it's video. So if you're listening from Anchor or any of the other audio places, please join me over at YouTube and subscribe and you can actually see me, meet the voice behind all of the audio plays. So today, I am so pleased to welcome someone that I absolutely love. His stance on things, his spirit. We truly, truly connected in his 50 conversations with 50 strangers. It was an honor being a guest on that and just talking with him so openly and candidly. And I'm excited for you guys to get to know him because he has a very complex background in studying connectivity, if I can sum that up best. So welcome. And let's go ahead and jump into the conversation.
It is such an honor to be with you. I loved you when I met you in 50
Yeah.
in 50 conversations with 50 strangers. You were brave enough to come on there. And then what you're doing with True Talks and what I was doing with 50 conversations, it just seemed like, boy, like what one mind in two different bodies, one pretty, one old. You know, that it's
No,
like coming together.
just wise and wisdom, right? Just wisdom and wisdom building off
All
each
in,
other.
all in one place with you. And
Yeah.
then some old bozo on the bus talking here. But
Yeah, no, I truly connected with you. And like I said, I really wanted my audience to get to know you. So today, I want
thank
you
you.
to just kind of walk us through your journey. Because reading up about you, again, we didn't know each other. It's how this started. And you're actually the first technically stranger I've had on my podcast. So I'm excited to see where this goes. Um, but I want you to walk my audience through the journey of becoming Danny and feeling so connected to humanity as a whole.
That's an awfully nice question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, I think it started probably for me when I lost my dad. I was a boy, 13 years old.
Mm.
He was my hero. I was 13, when I was 13, so that means it was 52 years ago. I'm 65 now. So I was a mini me before the term mini me was even invented because we would go to the shore in Atlantic City for a vacation and I would hold my dad's ring finger and I would walk and I would look at him and I would say, Dad, why are all the people turning around and looking at us? And sure enough, people were stopping their bikes. People were turning around and looking at us because the way we walked was exactly the same. Our waddle was exactly the same. The way we looked was exactly the same. I was just like a 3-foot version or a 4-foot version, and he was a 6'1" version, but it was even when we were kids, when I was 4 years old, that would be what would happen. And so to have my hero taken from me randomly for no reason, it seemed, made me question the world that I lived in. And it literally scared the bejeebies out of me because I thought, how can I live in a world like this that's random like that? How can I put any faith in anything if the person that I love most can be taken from me at a moment's notice without me even knowing it? So what I did, because I was smart and I was always brilliant, my mind was always really clever, is I made up a story. And the story was, I figured out a way to put myself at blame for his death. I went away to camp and he was going on a business trip before I was going to, 4 days before I was going to leave for camp. And he came in my room. He said, "Good night, Danny. I want to give you a big kiss. I want to tell you I'll see you at Visitors Day, Parents' Day at camp. I'm leaving tomorrow early in the morning." And I said, "Hold on, hold on. How early are you leaving? I'm not going to let you just walk out the door without getting up and giving you a big hug and a kiss and seeing you out and telling you I love you." He said, "Danny, do that now. I'm leaving early in the morning. I'm leaving at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I got to get out then." I said, "Dad, come on. I'm going to wake up. I'm going to see you." Well, 4 o'clock came and went, and I didn't get up. I overslept. So I made up the story that if I would have gotten up at 4 o'clock, 4 days before I left for camp, my dad would not have died 4 weeks later of a heart attack making love to my mom 4 weeks later. Now, is there any rational connection between those two things? Absolutely not. But in my little, immature, beautiful, brilliant mind, what it allowed me to do is create a cause and effect. That was the cause, and this was the effect. And I would rather be the cause of that happening than live in this random world where anything can happen at any point in time for any reason, for no reason. And that's when it really started. And then my mom died 2 years later on the same day.
Wow.
And that day was 4th of July.
Mm.
So I made up another story. And the story I made up for my parents both passing away on 4th of July was that they were giving me a lesson by the day they passed away. And the lesson that I learned from that was independence. You got to be independent. You got to know how to stand up on your own. You got to be able to live in this world. You got to be able to take care of yourself. You got to be able to do everything. And I learned that lesson very, very, very well.
Wow.
Until I had coffee with somebody a few years ago. And I was sitting there explaining it because it was close to 4th of July. And I was telling him the story, and I said, hold it. I think I got the whole lesson wrong. They weren't born on the 4th of July. Being born on the 4th of July would mean freedom. Dying on the 4th of July would mean that independence means death. I missed that part. And all of a sudden, that coincided with me writing this book, which is called The Mosaic, which you can see somehow over my shoulder here. I finally did it right. I got the right fingers.
It looks good.
I thank you. And that whole book was about connection. That whole book was the importance of connection and how we can't do anything on our own. We're like pieces of a mosaic, broken, shattered, sometimes whole. But on our own, we don't amount for anything. But when we come together and we work together as many pieces coming together to create this gorgeous tapestry or artistry called the mosaic, what can't we do? Together we're stronger. United we stand. Divided we fall. We grew up with that. But the world we live in somehow is divided we fall, divided we fall. And I don't understand it.
Yeah.
So the purpose of what I've come to do is look for ways to reconnect a disconnected world. And that's really what I'm here to do now. And
Wow.
I sort of have an idea now how to do it.
Well, that was actually going to be one of my next questions is what do you feel like, you're being called to do to connect that? Because it definitely is divisive pieces out there. I mean, we all contribute to it. I know I've been guilty of it in the past,
Yeah.
but as I grow older, I become more and more intentional about maybe patterns that I have that causes divisiveness, things that I say, things that I do, and correcting that. But much like yourself, you seem to take extreme measures to isolate yourself, though, because when I read about your monk history, your background, you want to talk about that a little bit.
Sure.
And spending time in isolation, I think it's interesting that we cross paths now because so many people are being forced into isolation for whatever reason. With COVID-19, you have people in hospitals, people quarantined, self-quarantining, and then you have, people who are actually mandated to stay inside,
Yeah.
And so it's interesting that we meet now, but I would love to know what that experience was like for you, staying in isolation, and how you feel like it's piecing together the answer to reconnecting people.
So when I was told that my mission was to reconnect a disconnected world, and I wasn't told by some voice in the heavens that came out, but I just had an inner calling. It was just a quiet whisper, which is how my God speaks to me most of the time. He doesn't shout. She doesn't laugh. She doesn't scream. It's just a quiet whisper. And most of the time I miss it because my mind is too noisy. But I'm learning more and more to just quiet down and just listen, because I love hearing my divine speak back to me. And one of the things that it told me was, you got to learn how to connect with each of this world. And I said, me? Why would you pick me? Like, of all the people that you could pick, I'm like a monastic. I'm like, leave the world be. It's all fine. Let me just retreat. Let me just go back. Let me just be here. I'll pray for everybody. I mean, I love praying for people. But you want me to connect the world? Like, what is there, like, are you really that low on the totem pole? Like, there must be people that are better at this than me. And what I heard is, it's not because you're good at it, it's because it's what you need to learn.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so we want you to do it because you got to learn how to do this. And so let's backtrack, though, because I think you're asking me about how it was in the monastery.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, that's give
Okay.
it. I want to know the backstory to that, because that is
Okay.
interesting. Yeah.
Okay. So as I write in the mosaic, when my mom and dad passed away, the book is basically the story of my life, but fableized.
Okay.
I asked the adults where my parents were, just like Mo does in the book. So I'm going to say Mo, but you're going to sort of subtly know that's Mo is me. Okay. So Mo asks the adults where his parents are, and the adults tell him they're in this place called heaven. So he's a kid. He's just 15 years old now. So he sets out and he says, I'm going to find that place called heaven, because I can't believe I can't be. I want to be with my mom and dad. Like, I miss them. And so he sets out on this journey to find heaven. And the people he meets are not the standard people that you would imagine. He doesn't meet the priests and the ministers and the rabbis and the swamis and the gurus and the shamans and the medicine men and the aborigines or elders and the Shinto priests. He finds the trash man and the road worker. He finds the blind woman and the homeless guy. He finds the waitress and the gardener and the traveler. And he wonders to himself, like, did I get the memo wrong? Why am I bumping into these people? What can these people teach me about heaven? These people are just common, ordinary people. And I have to say, I was a little bit of a snob in my life, because I sort of had a vibration that I wanted to maintain in my life. And I only mixed with people that I thought had that vibration or higher. I only ate at restaurants that cooked, with their love of their heart in the food that they made. I don't think I had a fast food burger, most of my life. And so again, I said, like, what do you want with me? Why are you introducing me to these people? And then I thought, you know what? I'm here. I'm on the road. I'm here. I'm taking this journey. Why don't you at least sit and listen to what these people say? Well, in every single case, when I sat with them, what I found was they were completely different than the people that I thought they were. It just took a few minutes of being with them and hearing and listening to them. And in listening to their story, I went, whoa, whoa, you're not at all what I thought you were. And I started to, when it happened over and over and over and over again, I said to myself, hold it. I'm not seeing the world the way it is. I'm seeing this convoluted, wet world. And the world that I'm seeing is the world that is me. I'm seeing what I'm seeing. I'm not seeing what's there. How do I get out of my own way and see the world that's there, so that I don't see me, I see what is? And at that moment, I looked to my right and I saw a monk who was unzipping the sky and walking me through and inviting me to walk with him through to a parallel reality. And what he introduced me to was the wise man who was the keeper of the mosaic. I'll leave the story there for anybody who might want to pick up the book and read it. It's a fabulous story. But what happened is I went to all these different places and all these different things in my real life, many of which were huge, many of which people would say to Danny, those are heaven on earth opportunities. I had a chance to run a $1 billion company, to start at the bottom, work my way up, and run a $1 billion company. I had the chance to be the apprentice and the partner as a student to my teacher who started organizational psychology. I had a chance to spread Judaism worldwide in a way that had never been spread before. I had a chance to be uh, a monk in a monastery, but none of them gave me what I was looking for, because I was looking for that heaven that where my mom and dad were. But in the monastery, what happened for me, as I wandered through the earth and I traveled all over this earth, everywhere I looked, the answer wasn't there. And wise people would say to me, "Why are you traveling outside when your answers are inside?"
Wow.
And I said, "I'm going to see then if my answers are inside. I'm going to see what happens." And trainees, I bet you've fallen in love one time. Have you ever
No,
fallen in love? You've
no.
never fallen in love?
I'm
Okay.
guarded. I'm too guarded. I will be the first to say it's me. It's not them.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, for those people who have fallen in love, the only thing you want to be is be with your beloved. Something about the monastery, I fell in love with my beloved.
Wow.
And it was the only place I ever wanted to be. It was the place that I felt safest and most comfortable. It was the place that I felt like this will never vanish. This will be with me all of my days. Everything else I'll lose. Everything else I'll have for a little while, I'll enjoy it, and it'll be gone. But my beloved never will be gone unless I run away from him. And so I fell in love with my beloved, and I didn't want to be anywhere else but there. So I would wake up early in the morning to spend time with him or her.
Yeah.
I would I would eat breakfast with her, and then I'd go to work. And I'd work with her, and I would try and keep her in my work, and I would try and work through her and with her and do all the things. I would take a break before lunch and meditate for an hour or so, and just come back and feel the presence of being in this beautiful presence. I would come home at night after work, and I would sit again and just meditate again more. And sometimes I fell asleep while I was sitting. Like here I was meditating, but I was just exhausted. I was waking up at 3 or 4 in the morning every day and meditating for 5 or 6 hours before I even went out for the day. And then I would come home and I would sit for another 4 or 5 hours, and just sometimes I would fall asleep. And then I said to myself, okay, what's wrong with falling asleep in the arms of your beloved? That's a beautiful thing to do. So just feel your beloved, even when you're sitting here and you're falling asleep, feel your beloved is holding you and loving you. And there's nothing wrong with that. So it changes up a little bit. So you're sleeping. That's okay. When you wake up, come back to her. And there was this intoxication that I felt. But there was also this fear of if I leave here, what will happen? And so I was great when I was in my monastery. But when I went out, I noticed certain people would get me upset. And I remember one guy came into our monastery, and we had a peaceful place. The guys were fabulous, and we loved being with each other. We would laugh with each other when we would be together. One guy came in, and he was just the biggest asshole you ever want to meet. He was like, he pissed all of us off, and he was new. And so, like a week or two into it, we went to our teacher and we said, "Come on, like, what are you doing? This guy, I don't think this guy belongs here." And our teacher said, "Really? Why?" And one by one, we said how he pissed us off and what he was doing and how he was bothering us. And our teacher looked at us and just had that smile that we knew we were in trouble with. And he said, "Guys, I don't think you understand. If he wasn't here, it would behoove me to go into town and find somebody just like him and hire him to come here and be here, because you think you're all this and you're all that. This guy shows you in 2 minutes that you don't have any of the things you have. You lose all your peace when he's around. How is that possible? Like, if you had peace, he wouldn't bug you. He's your greatest teacher. Treat him such."
Wow.
So it was beautiful. There were so many things that we learned, but most of all, I think what I took from it is this sense of what would happen if I lived in a world that never vanished? What would have happened if I could actually have a dialogue? Like in the West, we talk to God, but we don't really listen too much to him. We tell him how great he is. Like I was one day away from being ordained a rabbi in Jerusalem, Israel. I was going to be an
Whoa.
Orthodox rabbi.
Whoa.
And our prayers were always about, oh God, you're great. Oh, you're fabulous. Oh, you're wonderful. Oh, you're omnipresent. Oh, you're omniscient. Oh, you're omni. There were so many omnis, I didn't know what to do. And finally, I looked at my teacher, my Rebbe, and I said, Rebbe, when do I get a chance to listen to what he wants to say? And he says, you have 18 seconds in one of these prayers where you have the quietness. Just focus and listen. I said, 18 seconds? We're spending like 5 hours praying to him. Why? Do you really think he needs us to tell him for 5 hours a day how great he is? I think he knows that.
Mm-hmm.
I think he wants to talk to us. I think he has something to say to me. And eventually that's why I left one day before I became ordained.
Wow.
Because I said, I just can't support this system. I tried my best, but I just can't support it.
Wow.
And so from that environment, going to a place where I could sit for all this time and just say, God, I love you. I miss you. I like, show me how to know you, and just sit and listen for a response. Oh my God, that was so beautiful.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. I jokingly, respond to you and saying that I'm guarded, but it's speaking of the physical and that with someone else, no, I've never been in love with anyone. The closest thing to that is my mom and my brother. I can say
Yeah,
that because of the devotion I have and constantly, despite how angry I may get, that's when you really know if it's love, right? Despite how
yeah,
angry you may get, if you threaten to disconnect or do something, but you still do the complete opposite, reconnect, still there, still devoted. That's acts of love. But I mean, being deeply in love with someone, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's that sacred space that's just for
yeah,
you and only one other being that knows you better than you know yourself. And similar to yourself, I wake in that same spirit of just wanting to be in the
yeah,
presence of. As you were speaking, it kind of reminded me of India.Arie. I'm not sure if you know that artist.
yeah. I do. I love her music.
The Sacred Space
I
and
love her music.
Crazy video. Have you seen that?
No, I don't know if I've seen Crazy
Yeah,
Video.
watch the Crazy. I think she titled it Crazy/Sacred Space, and she combines those two because people love those two tracks off of her latest album.
I
And
love it.
Sacred Space is basically metaphor for God. And she uses a man as a metaphor for God, but it's really about that agape. It's about how
Yeah,
you fall freely, and this is the one place that you can go to hide, that you can go to be and reveal yourself and not have anything to worry about. And
yeah,
it's unfortunate this I feel like so much of life voids us of that opportunity
yeah,
because of the distractions. And so I'm always keen on now, especially as I'm in my 20s, and I've uh approached it a lot differently than I did my teens. Like, you always know that something is watching out for you, and
yeah,
initially you're taught that through your parents. If you're someone who grew up in a religious household, it's always birthed in you that there's something bigger than humanity. There's a creator of all creators, and like that type of thing. But when you find it for yourself, it becomes a very personal relationship. And I think right now I've definitely been nurturing that. And so when you were speaking, I connected with it, but for me, it stuck out as a sacred space,
yeah.
you know.
It is a sacred space, and I can tell you now, having been married, having lost my wife to cancer, having been married again, that there is no difference between the sacred space of the monastery and the sacred space of being with your beloved.
Do you feel like it's because you found God in her, or was it a matter of you soften a person first?
Great question. Look, I think, I want to be a little flippant, but I don't mean to be flippant.
No, go for it. Whatever you're feeling in your spirit, go.
I, I, I didn't find God in anybody. God is in everybody.
Yeah.
I just was, I just let down my guard to let myself see it. Like what happens is, because I lost my parents and because I lost my wife and because my daughter was born developmentally delayed, I was scared of letting somebody come close to me. I still am with my wife currently. I've been married for 6 years and to my wife, and she has two great kids. And I have a developmentally delayed daughter. We have a beautiful family together. And she loves me so much. But I hold her back a little bit because I made up a story. You know, I'm a great storyteller. And you already heard two of the stories I made up,
I've got to
right?
read the rest. I'm highly impressed by your stories.
Thank you. And so I made up a story that everybody that really comes close to me gets hurt. So if I love somebody, I've got to hold them a little bit back because I don't want them to get too close. Because if they get too close, something bad's going to happen. It's almost as if, like 2 millimeters from my heart, they're razor blades of walls that will chop and sever people in pieces. But that story is just not true.
How do we break out of that? Because now we're tampering on, for you, that's been your experience, and it's kind of like childhood trauma, and like so many people are having to deal with that now. I know I can attest to having to work through things that hold you back, that make you very guarded. But like, how do you break out of that? Because it can hinder you from experiencing some of the most profound
Yes.
experiences in life that God has for you.
Yes. Um, I can tell you where I'm experimenting. I can't tell you how I broke out because I haven't broken out yet. But I can tell you where I'm experimenting. I can tell you a little bit of successes that I'm having.
Yeah. Wow.
I think everything that happens is a reflection of how I relate to myself. In my own self, I knock myself down all the time. I used to do it so much more. But if you could see us, we're on video now. So for people that are on YouTube, you'll see it great because we're on video, so we can
Yep.
do this example. Okay.
All right. Let's go
So
for it.
if you can imagine any time that I set myself up to do something and I tell myself I can't do it or I try and sabotage it, what I'm really doing is I'm doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I didn't put my left hand in front of my face, my right hand would have just punched me pretty hard in the face. And I've probably taken a few good shots with my right hand punching me in the face. And then I realized, hold it, if I put my hand here, it won't do that. It'll just hit my hand. And what I realized is I don't know where I'm going to hit myself or when I'm going to hit myself. So you can see I'm about 2 millimeters from my face. So I crafted this very sleek, mobile silo that I can put 2 millimeters from my whole body so that I can't hurt myself with my own assault. So those razor blades are not to protect me from anybody else. Those razor blades have been to protect me from my own self-assault. When I stop hitting myself, when I start to be kind to myself, and this is right out of the Mosaic, when I learned I need to connect to myself before I can connect to anybody. And what's blocking me from connecting to myself is all this self-judgment, all this putting myself down, all this, you're not good enough, you can't do it. When I stop doing that, then I don't need a wall to protect myself because I'm not hitting me. Now, I might need one when I see you because I don't know you. You might decide you're going to take me out, right? But I also know that if I can tear down the wall of my own building, that I can probably do it with you as well. Because if I can come to you and I can say to you, hey, I promise you I won't hurt you. I'll never do anything to hurt you purposely. I love you. And would you be willing to take one brick down off your wall and just see how we feel?
That's real. That's
And
real.
and if you are, then we can take one brick down and just leave it there for a long time. Or we can say, hey, this isn't that bad. Let's take one more and test it out. And let's take it until we don't feel comfortable. And then let's give each other the space to feel comfortable in that space or put another brick back. But over time, we can disintegrate the walls that exist between ourselves and ourselves and each other. And when we do that, then we come through the second. So the first step of connecting with another human being is to connect to ourselves and get to know ourselves. Because as long as we're walking around in a silo, we can't have a connection. My silo meets your silo, and we think we're connected. We're just our walls are hitting each other. That's not connect. There's no intimacy there. We don't see. I don't see you, and you don't see me. I don't let you see into me, which is intimacy, right? I don't let you see into me, and you don't see it. And so I have to get my wall down so that you can see me. As soon as I bring my wall down and I let you in, then gosh, I'm vulnerable. Like so now, I say, whoa, look at this whole world that's out here. It's amazing, and I'm here. Once I connect to myself, I have to understand there's a connection that's even greater than myself. There's something that is universal. There, God, I call it him or her God. Okay, if you're not comfortable with God, call it whatever you're comfortable with. And if you're not comfortable with God, sort of shame on you. Why aren't you comfortable with God? I mean, like there, I got
I love God. What's wrong with you, son?
yeah. What the heck is wrong? Like God's gotten such a bad rap. Just he's not sitting up there with a better beard than I, judging you. He's loving you.
Right.
Right. And so once we realize we can connect ourselves and then we connect the source and we say, oh, wow, look at this. Like I'm not alone anymore. This powerful force that's created this whole universe is here. So you know what? When I don't feel good enough, that's the best feeling in the world, because that's my ticket to say, God, will you come in? Because I can't do this without you. I'm not good enough. You're right. You're not good enough. But there's a power that comes through you that's good enough to do anything. Let that force come into you and let it work with you and let it affect you and let it run with you and let it play with you and let it have a great time with you. And as soon as you realize that that force is there, then you start to realize, hold it. If that force is coming through me, there must be something that I'm here to do. And then we have to connect to the purpose of why we're here. Why are we here? So oftentimes I work with people and I'll say to them, what are you here for? I don't know. What do you mean, what am I here for? I work, I get a check, I come home, I pay my bills, I have a nice family, I go to sleep, I wake up and I do it again, rinse and repeat. Really? Is that why you're here? You were created on this earth because there's something that's never been done before that you're here to do. And your creator is so sure that you will own into that he'll never create another person to do it from now till the end of time. Just like there's never been another person before now to do what you're going to do and the way you're going to do it. When you do it, there doesn't need to be anybody else that's done it. You've done it. That's a pretty important place to space to hold in this world, right? And so when people who are kind to themselves, that are vulnerable and kind to each other, that are vulnerable and realize that they're not in control of this world, there's something way bigger that's doing that are purposeful. When those people come together and meet another human being, that's when connection happens. This connection isn't just me talking to you and you listening to me. That's my wall meeting your wall for the most part. It's a pretty bow tie meeting a nice shade of lipstick. It's really nothing more than that, right?
Right.
But when we come together with kindness, with vulnerability, understanding we're part of something much, much bigger than we are, asking why, what our purpose in that whole plan is, then we come together with other people. And that's when small groups of people can change the course of civilization. Jesus had 12 disciples. He made a pretty big impact, right? He didn't need legions of people. In the teachings of the East, the Bhagavad Gita, there's a major battle that's going on. And the good guys are called the Pandava brothers. They're 5 brothers. And Krishna, the guy, the Jesus of the East, say, so to speak, without making too many waves. But he's like the figure that was born perfect in this world. In the East, he comes to the Pandava brothers and he comes to the rest of the people, the bad guys. And he says, you have a choice. You can either have me ride in your chariot, or you can have every soldier that's ever been created to ride in your chariot to fight behind you. Which do you choose? And the 5 Pandava brothers said, God, we choose you, Krishna, because we know if you're in our chariot, if God's in our chariot, we can't lose. The bad guys say, "Are you kidding? You're going to take that one little scrawny little piece of guy there? We're going to take all the warriors. We're going to destroy you." And it's a long battle. It's not that easy. It's just not because you have God on your side do you win every battle all the time. But over the course of time, the 5 brothers win, of course, because they have God in their chariot. When we come together with God in our chariot, when we come together with other people that have God in their chariot, they can be all sorts of races, all sorts of religions, all sorts of incomes, all sorts of things. At least the way I believe. Maybe churches believe differently or people believe differently. It's okay. Let them. I believe. There was a man showing a person who recently died around heaven, and he said, "What's that behind there?" I see, "What's that big wall?" And he walks him up to it, and he says, "You can't say anything because." I can't say this without being politically correct, so I'll use my own religion to do it because it could be any religion. The Jews think they're the only ones up here, so we had to build this wall. Make them. but, but it's not. We're all up here together because down here we have to fight each other and say our religion's right, our religion's right. But up there, it's just there's oneness.
One, right?
It's oneness. There is no our religion and your religion. It's one religion. It's one God. You can call me by any name you want. But up there, we all celebrate together, except for the people who need to feel that they're the only ones up there, and they'll build a wall for you up there. It doesn't matter.
All right. So much of what you said, I'm in total agreement with. I mean,
Yeah.
and that to me, peeling off those layers is critical. And I've been in that phase for probably 2 years now, really. And for me, it did take a loss, which occurred going on 9 years now in November. And I lost my grandmother when I became, flooded with emotions that I had suppressed. So peeling that off is always something that I always encourage others because I know what wonders it performed for me, and the sacred space that, we'd be here for a whole another hour or so if we went into detail of what that looks like and how that can really build your trust and make you connect to love in a different way than what is perceived in society and in relation to people, around you in your environment. It looks a whole lot differently. And so I can honestly say if I never tapped into who God was and if I never tapped into his presence in my life, I probably would be much harder and harsh than because I was living like that kind of, I would show and exemplify love to certain people, my grandmother, my mom, my brother, my cousin, my aunt, and strangers I wouldn't hug. I wasn't big on hugging growing up. I was selective, but I could love anyone. Everybody felt comfortable around me, even people that didn't readily see things the way that I did. I've always had that element of me to be welcoming and non-judgmental, to make people feel so comfortable. But like internally, some things I had to work through and I'm still working through. Everybody's a work in progress, but I feel like if you're intentional about putting in the work and welcoming something other than your own rationale, you may grow, you may stretch a bit. And it's uncomfortable, but you just have to.
So because I've been through it and I'm in through it and I'm going through it, let me just lob something over the net. It's not meant to fix you or change you, or it's just meant as brother and sister talking to each other. Okay?
I embrace it. Bring it. Okay. You drop jewels.
Okay. Thank you. We think too much. And we think we're responsible for too much. One of the most beautiful practices I've started to work with in the last few years is this practice of just letting go.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Oh my gosh. Control. Listen.
Yeah.
Listen. Control will jam you up. And that, some of my dearest friends know that I'm learning that day by day. And I've literally, when I tell them I'm walking in the spirit now, that's what I mean. Because so much of me has had to go from point A to point B and try to make things precise and perfect. Yeah. And nothing of what I wrote down or planned, these little 10-year plans, 4-year plans, whatever, it has not came into fruition the way in which it should have if I'm doing everything so perfectly. And so realizing that I'm not in control of anything and being okay with that. I'm learning.
So in the mosaic, and I don't know if we spoke about this when we talked in 50 conversations, but if we did, I apologize for repeating it.
It's
But
new to my audience, so it'll be
okay.
fine.
So one of my favorite characters is the trash man. And the trash man in our neighborhood, he comes every Monday morning. And he comes, we put every Sunday night, we put out in the trash all the things that we don't want anymore. We put them in the trash can and he comes and picks them up and he leaves us our empty cans and we rinse and repeat. We go back the next week, we put all the things we don't want in the trash can again and he comes back the next Monday morning and he does it. Well, as Mo's walking through town, he's walking on this pristine, beautiful street, clean as can be. He has nothing, he's not carrying anything. He has nothing in his pockets, nothing on his back. And suddenly a trash truck pulls up right next to him and stops and says, "Do you have any trash for my truck?" And Mo looks at him and thinks, like, what are you, crazy? I mean, the streets are clean. I have nothing on my back. I don't have nothing in my pockets. What do you want me to do? Give you my clothes? What do you expect? I don't have any trash. And he's just about to say, "What are you, crazy?" And he looks into the eyes of the trash man and he sees this little glimmer. And he realizes the trash man isn't talking about physical trash. He's talking about emotional trash and spiritual trash and mental trash. He's talking about all the things that keep us from being who we want to be. And he looks at him and he said, and Mo says, "Oh my God, I have a lot of that trash." And the trash man says, "I'm here." He stops the truck and he gets down and he says, "What can I help you bring to the trash truck?" And you don't even have to put it in the truck. Let's just put it in this can. And he holds this can and he says, "Put everything that troubles you. Put anything that causes you pain. Put anything you're afraid of. Anything that you fear and really is keeping you from holding you back. Put all the beliefs that you no longer want to believe. Just put them in the trash can for a minute." And the trash man says, "Sometimes people have said, well, it's you that's causing me all this pain." And he said, when people say that to him, he says, "That's okay. I understand. Talk to me. Put it all, tell me everything that you feel. What am I doing? Put it all right here in this can. You don't have to defend yourself. You don't have to rationalize. You don't have to, just keep the can open and tell me, pour it all in." Because the compassion in doing this practice is if we can give people a glimpse of themselves without all that stuff inside of them. It's right here in the can. They can come and get it if they want. And if they want us to throw it in the truck, we can put it in the truck anytime when they want. But for right now, let's just keep it right in this can. Just let it be there. But what does it feel like to no longer carry that around with you?
Yeah.
Can you imagine? And that's the compassion of the trash man. So now all of your listeners have met him. You don't need me to introduce him. You don't even need to buy the book to hear him. You know him now.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're at this place where you're caught and you're angry or you're fearful or you think that you're the one that has to do it or you've got to control it or you got to be the one that does it, take it and just put it in the trash can. Because when you realize that the one who comes through you is much more powerful than the one that is you, you'd put it all in the trash can and just be as empty as you could to let him fill you up with everything that he's got.
Yep. And it
Feel
won't
that.
happen overnight.
Depends how complete you believe it is.
That's why I was about to say how long you prolong it,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
based off of your sincerity. When I started this, it hit me. It just did. I met people that really brought things out of me that I know I was packaging, and taking that journey, believing that it would pan out for me. And even if you don't believe it pan out for you, just opening up to it in sincerity and just being transparent, it's going to lead you so much further in life. Guys, when I talk to y'all, on the audio podcast, when it was just audio, now you can see me. Let me say that again. But that's what I mean in all conversations when we're talking about regarding life to the highest extent, seeing what's most fulfilling to you and seeing it out. Regardless if it makes sense to you or anyone else, it's just a matter of doing something because you feel purpose-filled to do it. But that's a process. It's not going to happen in the midst of our mess. As people, we carry plenty of mess. And I love the metaphor of trash, because that's exactly what it is. It's stuff that we can't even use a lot of the times that we're carrying. And much
Yeah.
of it for me has been stemming from control,
Yeah.
thinking that I'm in control of certain situations, panning out the way I envision it, or if I had just been there being preventative,
Yeah.
that can be a problem.
So Trinice, let me ask you this. And what is your control trying to tell you?
Nothing now, because I've lost all control. Listen, COVID-19 will strip you. If you're down to if you've worked through the emotional portion of it and you're just down to the financial, hey, control is stripped with COVID-19.
Okay, good.
So,
But here's what I want to say to people, because what we tend to do is we have something happening in our life, or a pain that's coming to us, or a feeling that we have, and we end up resisting it and fighting it. What I want to invite people to do is, instead of fighting it, embrace it. Ask it, what are you trying to say to me? Because everything in the world is speaking to me. And I found this out as I was writing the mosaic. It was the story of my life. I thought it was going to take a little time to do. I thought in 3 to 6 months, I'll be done with this book. This is easy. I know most of the characters are people that I've met. They're based on things that have happened. I put 1 or 2 or 3 people in there so that I would discover them as the reader would discover them, just to feel that sense of newness. But most of them were people that I met, and telling their stories seemed easy. But somewhere along the line, it wasn't easy. The characters kept disrupting it. They kept corrupting the files. They kept making me lose files. They kept not making it sound like it sounded great at the night. It didn't sound good in the morning. Finally, I sat with them and I invited them. I said, "What the hell are you doing to my book? Like, what are you guys doing?" And these were characters that I created, characters that I made up. And they basically said to me, "Let's have a Zoom call together." Now, it may be that I'm not seeing you really here, and you may be just a figment of my imagination, and I may be channeling you in this conversation, but I don't think so. You seem pretty real. Well, in the same way, the characters appeared on a Zoom screen with me, and they seemed very real. And I said, "Guys, what's going on? What are you doing?" And they said, "Danny, we don't want to say what you're writing for us to say, so what else are we going to do? We have to take it away from you." I said, "What the heck are you talking about? You're my characters. You do what I tell you to do." They said, "No, I don't think you got that right. Once you created us, we have a voice of our own. We want you to listen to what we're trying to say, because this book isn't for you, isn't for anybody else but you. We want you to hear what we're trying to tell you, and you haven't been listening. So the only thing we can do is take it away from you." When I listened to what they said, the book was done in 6 weeks. Now, who's listening here believes the world or characters that you make up can talk to you? Okay, I love that you're raising your hand. Good.
I'm telling you, hey, listen, I'm telling you, I've literally told professors that certain things look like animation to me, when I'm in
Yeah.
scenes, because I'm a creative writer as well. And so I just haven't published anything, and that's a whole nother conversation. But
Yeah.
again, this is my moment of rest and prioritizing and following the spirit. So whatever
Yeah.
it is, where my laser beam focus needs to be is what I'm trying to, make sure I do. But yeah, no, characters, when you're creative, characters are up here nonstop, whether you like it
Yeah.
or not. Sometimes you see them and they, it may sound weird to some people, but yeah, sometimes you see them, you definitely hear them. They take over your mind, and it's either you're going to write it down and listen like what you were saying, or you're going to just be running around with multi-personalities, I guess.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah.
So it's so important. My mission that I've really been given is to create a revolution of listening. That's why I'm doing 50 conversations with 50 strangers. But the world itself needs to listen. And if I could share a story with you,
Go for
would
it.
that be okay?
Yeah, we got a little bit more time.
How much time do we have? Do we have 10
about
minutes? 5 minutes?
about 5 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, 5 minutes, great. Trinice, I've had the opportunity to sit with the richest people in the world. And I've also had the opportunity to sit with the poorest people in the world. They've all wanted the same thing, I think I told you: to be loved and accepted, listened to and heard, accepted and validated. Well, the story I want to tell you is about one of the poorest people I've ever met. He was a homeless person on the streets of San Diego. And when I went up to talk to him, he was very resistant about me sitting down with him. He said, "This is my spot. You go away. This is my spot. I've earned this spot. I've been here for 5 years. I've earned this. Don't even try and come and take this spot from me." I said, "Brother, I'm not going to take your spot from you. I just want to sit and talk with you. In fact, I'll give you 10 times of what you earned in a day if you just let me sit and talk to you for a little bit." So he thought, okay, well, maybe let's see what, he said, "That's going to be $45. I said, "That's okay. I'm going to give you $45. That'd be my pleasure." And so he said, okay. But he was very resistant. And so I said to him, it took me about 30 or 45 minutes. And suddenly he let me in. And we started to talk. And I started to ask him how he was doing and what was going on. And then finally I said to him, you watch on the street here as people pass you by all during the day, all during the night. People pass you by. If you could stop them for 1 minute, what would you say to them? He said, being homeless is a hard job. On the best day, it's a hard job. On the worst day, it's terrible. People treat me worse than they would treat a wounded animal. They come by and they kick me. They come by and they punch me. They spit on me. They urinate on me. They beat me up and they take my money. They make fun of me. They yell obscenities to me. And he said, one day all of it happened and I just was fed up. I said, what am I doing? It's not like I want to be homeless. And then I'm causing people this much anger at me. When the evening comes, I'm going to go around the corner and to a dark street. And I'm just going to take my life because this is stupid to be here. There's no reason to be here doing this. Not 2 minutes after I had that thought, a man came up to me and put his hand on my shoulder. And he said, "How you doing, brother?" And tears started to flow from his eyes, Corey's eyes. And Corey said, "I'm not doing that well, my friend." And the man, instead of turning around and leaving, just sat down with him and held him. And he said, tell me, I'm here for you. Tell me what's going on." He looked at me, he said, "Danny, it only took about 10 minutes. But in that 10 minutes, I realized that someone had stopped in the midst of their day and cared enough about me to sit with me through my tears and just listen to me." He said, "I've never seen that man again, but I wish I could because that man saved my life that day." Well, I haven't seen Corey again either, but I wish I could because what Corey doesn't realize is on every show that I'm on every podcast, on every lecture that I do, on in every seminar that I give, in every boardroom that I go to, I tell Corey's story. Millions of people have heard his story because what he asked is that if people would just take 10 minutes out of the course of their day to sit with somebody they don't know and just ask them how they are, it would change somebody's life. And so what I'd like to invite your people who are listening now, in honor of Corey, 10 minutes out of the course of a lifetime is not a long time. You have 10 minutes. Go up to somebody you don't know. Ask them how they're doing. Go up to somebody else you don't know and ask if you can have a conversation with them. In these 50 conversations with 50 strangers that I'm doing, I'm meeting some of the most amazing people that I never even knew existed. They're becoming my friends. I feel them in my heart. And I love them. I love them deeply. And I never even knew them. I never even knew they were there 10 seconds ago. Take time to if we can't make the whole world get along with each other, we can make our world get along with each other. Take time and just open up to people. Let people in and tell them you're willing to listen to their story. They'll tell you anything. And just like in the mosaic, when I did that, the people that we see that we're living with won't be the people we're told about on television. We'll see real people. We'll have true talks with real people. And
Danny,
it'll be beautiful.
your breath of fresh air, man. You are a breath of fresh air for sure. And I love the fact that the first video episode we're doing, I was able to have you as a guest because again, I wanted it to hit a bit hard because I know like my first set of conversations, you know, we've had some really deep ones when it comes to race, you know, because of recent incidents. And we've also had some that were, you know, just a matter of comedic purposes, like reviewing movies and stuff and just talking. But I wanted to transition into a new wave of kind of uplifting people and empowering them at this time and really encouraging them to spiritually connect to whomever it is, you know, they want to refer to as God and just getting a higher power. Because I truly, truly feel like this is a spiritual battle that we're sitting in. And
Yeah.
I'd much rather us re-enter society when all of this is said and done whole for the first time, if ever, you know, that we can have that. And so these type of conversations, I want to make sure we hit spot on and have, you know, some encouragement, but some realism to it, you know. And
Love it.
you were the perfect guest for that. I enjoy you. I love you, brother. You
Mutual.
magnified a lot of things in my life, and I definitely still feel the spirit speaking to me each time we talk. This is not our last conversation. I
I
thank
hope
you
not.
for being on True Talks, and man, I pray for blessings over your life for real. Um,
Thank you.
so
Mirror,
guys,
mirror.
thank you. I receive it. So y'all, if you'd like to stay up with Mr. Danny, please find the Mosaic and purchase it. You do have a website. Is it the Mosaic Online or?
There's two websites. I have the Mosaic Online, and I
Mhm.
also have danielbrucelevin.com.
Okay, cool. So definitely check him out. Subscribe to his podcast. You know, reach out to him. Tell him how much you love him and what he's doing and how you're so in support of everything, guys. And like I always leave y'all, be blessed in every day that God gives you. Your life is full of purpose. Until next time, deuces.
Deuces.